Hi guys, welcome back. So today I'm doing my palette collection. So it was gonna be a palette collection where I was gonna declutter things, but I'm gonna be honest with myself. I won't get rid of palettes. I love my palettes. They're like my children. So this is gonna be very long. I have 90 palettes to go through. I'm gonna try and make it quick. I'll try not to swatch every eyeshadow. I'll try not to swatch every palette. We're gonna try and just get through this really quickly. So I'm not joking when I'm saying get yourself some dinner, grab a bottle of wine. I have my trusty drink right here, ready to go, because I will be getting parched through this. It'll happen. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pull out all of my palettes that I'm in my kitchen, and I have them all along my countertop. So instead of yakking away like I usually do, let's get into it, okay? So let's just start right, here's the first pile that I have. I'm gonna start with a palette, it's called the Makeup Atelier Paris. This was a palette that I got from the Lucky Bag for 2017. So not this year's Lucky Bag, but last year's. They're beautiful colors, beautiful brown colors. This black is stunning. I love this palette. I'll never get rid of it because it was my first thing I got from Beautylish. But to be honest with you, I never use it. It just sits in my collection. It's really pretty and there's nothing wrong with it. I just have so many of these similar colors, I just don't ever use it. So that's my first palette done. The next palette, the Sephora Pro, the Pro Pigment palette. This is the Warm palette. As you can see with this gold, right, the gold, like the rose gold wording on it is the Warm palette. This is a beautiful palette. To be honest with you, I never use it. I bought this palette simply because everyone was raving about it and it's gorgeous. It is a gorgeous palette. And I thought if I bought this, it would prevent me from wanting to buy the Natasha Denona Sunset palette. It did not do that job. Probably because I don't ever use the palette. If I would have used the palette, maybe I wouldn't have bought it. But it sits in my palette collection and I don't use it. It's gorgeous. The colors are gorgeous. I just really don't use it. I think I swatched it. I think I may have used it once. I have to use that yellow. That's what I really got it for. And when I was at Sephora, I swatched a bunch of the colors and I thought they were beautiful, but I don't use it, but it's going nowhere. I've got to try and use it more, okay? Well, I'm trying to put things in this little basket next to me, so I know I did it. I have the Cargo palette. This Cargo palette was the Vintage Escapes eyeshadow palette. When I first started buying makeup, this was like an eyeshadow palette that everyone had as a staple. I used it a bunch when I first got it. I didn't have a lot of other makeup. And there's nothing wrong with this palette. I think I actually have handed this on. I think that I've actually handed this palette on to my daughter. She uses some of these smokier colors that I just won't ever use. So it's found a new home in her palette, in her collection. The next palette that I have here, I have both of the Stila palettes. These Stila palettes are the Perfect Me, Perfect Hue. This is a medium tan and this one is in tan deep. This is the Stila Perfect Me, Perfect Hue, medium tan eyeshadow palette. These are all eyeshadows up here and these are both blushes. They're absolutely beautiful. They really do go on well. They're great if you're traveling and you don't want to take something really big, throw it in your travel bag and there you go. You've got an entire look and you can make multiple different looks with just this palette. They're beautiful, but with my collection, they get pushed to the back of the palette. I don't even think I've ever used this specific one. The other one I think I have used. Beautiful palette. And I got these during the Ulta 21 Days of Beauty. They were on sale, so I picked them both up. And this is the Tan Deep palette. Just darker colors again, all the eyeshadows down there and two blushes up there. It would be really nice to take on the go, but this is the Estee Edit palette from Estee Lauder. It's really kind of cool because it's a two palette in one. It has one side that's all highlights, the other side that's all eyeshadows. The palette comes apart with a magnet just like that and they magnet together. This is the eyeshadow side. I bought it specifically because I loved this green shadow. It's really pretty. And all of these colors are pretty. I just really don't ever wear it anymore. This is a palette that someday could find a new home. There's that eyeshadow right there. It's really pretty. Don't get me wrong. It's very pretty. They're very dark colors, so I'd have to have a reason to want to wear this eyeshadow. The other side's highlights, so I'll show that during my highlight palette, but I mean, they're so pretty and they're sparkly, so they do beautifully staying together. So they will stay together right in their home here. Today, I have my trusty little wipe, and I'm trying not to get everything wet. Okay, next palette, Violet Voss Pro eyeshadow palette. I wanted to try Violet Voss, and they were on sale one year, so I purchased the Pro just so that I could try the most amount of colors, because I felt like if I had this, I wouldn't really need any other palette. However, I really want the hashtag, the Violet Voss hashtag palette. This is a gorgeous palette, and you may think out of all these colors on this entire palette, my two favorites are these two browns that are here. They're a different kind of brown. It's called Courtney and Josie. They're like a reddish brown. Ooh, and I like Skylar, which is a, this is Skylar, this is Josie, and that's Courtney. They're like a reddish brown. And this is like a cool tone brown. I really like it. And my favorite color for like on the lid is Destiny. That's this color right here. It's really shimmery. This is a really pretty palette. They go on like a dream. It's a really pretty palette. And I feel like I'm spending way too much time. But I love this palette. I love these colors together and that on my lid. I do wear that a lot to work. But really, to be honest, out of the entire palette, that's really what I wear out of that whole entire palette. Because I have so many other palettes that have reds and oranges, as you're going to see. I have so many palettes that have these tones in them, but I don't have palettes that have those tones. So I tend to use that half of the palette, and this half of the palette, I would pick a ton of other palettes before I'd use this. So I do intend on, at some point, trying to do like a palette a week where I focus on using a palette for 1 week. The hard part is I like to use all of my makeup, and then I forget about stuff. So next palette is the Ciate London Pretty Fun and Fearless. This was the Chloe Morello, her first palette. I got this simply because I liked all the purples. It's a palette, it was something different that I didn't have. She came out with a new palette. I didn't pick that one up. I really don't reach for this one that much. This is very pretty. The purples are very pretty in it. My daughter steals this one out of my room all the time. But the purples are not an easy color to come by. Come on, focus, little buddy. They're hard. Purples are hard to come by, or a good purple is very hard to come by. So when you can find a palette that actually has decent purples, you go with it. There's that palette. There's a couple of those eyeshadows right there. And that's mainly why I bought that palette, was simply because it was Ciate, which is a brand I hadn't tried, and it was, it had purples in it, so I figured I'd go with purple. Next palette is the IT Cosmetics Naturally Pretty palette. This is a very old palette. I've had this for a very long time. It was, again, one of my first few palettes. It has seen some love. I apparently loved Mocha. I know I love this Transforming Pearl. This is a completely matte palette, but you could put this Transforming Pearl on top of it. IT Cosmetics I love. I love their CC cream, but this Transforming Pearl you could put on top of any color and it would change the way that the color looked. It was very pretty. Again, a palette that I used to use a long time ago, a ton, and now it's not being used in a very long time. My husband, I think, bought me this, and I was so excited. One of my girlfriends told him I wanted it. And this palette gets so dirty because it's... Next palette is the Balms Nude Tude. Everyone and their brothers had this palette. It's got this little brush. I don't know, never use it. I did really like this palette. I love this color right down here. Sexy. I liked that color a lot. And I liked Sultry, this color. Oh, and Stubborn. Again, this is another palette that just sits in the back of my collection because I have so many other palettes that I'm really enjoying. It's sad, but it's another palette that probably could be rehomed. Maybe I'll give that to my other daughter because she likes the lighter colors. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, we're getting through the onesies. I have a YSL palette that I bought, the Pure Chromatics. Oh yeah, I remember this palette. I had to get this. It's blinding because it's gold and it's shimmery. I got this palette because someone on YouTube raved about it, saying that when you apply these and you apply them wet, they're stunning. They're very, very pretty. I just never reach for this. It sits in with all my little onesies, my single eyeshadow palettes, and I don't ever touch them. They don't have a really good payoff if they're not wet. I mean, they're very nude payoff. If they're not wet, you're not going to get much out of them. Okay, the Skinny Dip, you saw that I just got this in the My Beautylish Lucky Bag. Sorry, I know that's blinding, so I'm not going to keep it open. This is pretty. To be honest with you, these are very pretty colors. I am very happy that I have it. But honestly, I think I've only used these two colors. and they're more like toppers, and they're gorgeous colors, but I like to have a bright pop of color on my lid. I don't like it to be really dark, and I feel like a lot of these are very dark. Now I'm gonna have glitter all over my hand. They're very glittery, don't get me wrong, and they're very pretty. I just have to use them more, I guess. But I do really like these two colors, these two lighter colors. I do like them. I mean, do I even need to say what this is? This is my only Morphe palette. I have so many high-end palettes. I have a lot of people that ask me, you know, if I could do drugstore palette reviews or if I can do dupe reviews. To be honest with you, I have so much makeup and I have so much high-end makeup that buying palettes that I'm just going to use for one video and never use again is just going to clutter up my stuff. It's a waste of time and money for me. So I bought this palette simply because everyone was talking about it online. Because I used to buy every single thing that Jaclyn Hill came out with, and so I heard on a review that this palette was so different than all the other Morphe palettes, so I said, you know what, I'm going to try it, and I bought it, and I don't think I've ever used it. So I am going to do a look using this palette just because this is very affordable. It's like $30-something, and I'm pretty sure you can get it at Ulta now, and I'm pretty sure that you can use the $3.50 off coupon for this, or any of the coupons that they send out for non-prestige items. You can use it on Morphe. And around me, we do have a Morphe. We have the ability to buy Morphe in store, and that's where I picked this up, was in Ulta. So I recently bought this, maybe 4 months ago. When it first came out at Ulta, I bought it. These are all the colors. I mean, everyone knows these. And this is, I guess, the newer packaging where the outside doesn't get so dirty. Pat McGrath Mothership 1 palette. I talked about this in my Get Ready With Me, my first Get Ready. I think one of my Get Readies. I love this palette. I have this on my eyes today, actually. I am going to be buying another palette like this. Just everything about this palette, the weight of the palette, the feel of the eyeshadows, it's gorgeous. They're gorgeous eyeshadows and I absolutely love them. This blue is stunning. I have this blue under my eyes today. I have this like white that's a duochrome shift. It's a white that shifts to blue. And then I have these two matte colors in my crease. And I love it. I love this palette. I love the wearability. I love how long they last. I just love it, and that's why I will be buying more eyeshadows from Pat McGrath. We're going to get into brands. I have full brands that I purchased from. I have two NARS palettes right here. This is the Narcissist Loaded palette. Again, mirrored, so I don't want to blind you, so I'm going to open it up. This is pretty. It's a pretty on-the-go palette. The problem that I have with this, I just used this recently because it's been sitting in my collection and I haven't been using it. So recently when I used it, I decided what the issue that I have with this palette is. The color payoff isn't as rich as some of the other eyeshadow palettes that I use that are in this warm family. It's a pretty palette, don't get me wrong. The colors are pretty. It's just the color payout, it's more of a muted color scheme. And you'll see as I go by what I'm talking about when I pull out my Natasha Denona or my Too Faced palette. These are more muted, and I think that's what the issue is. My other palettes that I have that are along the same line are so much more intense. But this is the NARS Loaded palette, and I think you can still get this palette. The Narcissist Dual Intensity eyeshadow palettes. When these eyeshadows came out, I don't want to blind you with the mirror on the front. When these eyeshadows came out, everyone went crazy about them because you can do them wet or dry, and they do have a beautiful payoff. I specifically bought it because I wanted this color right here. I really, really wanted that color, and that's why I bought it. It's beautiful. These eyeshadows are pretty, but you have to do a little work to get them on your eye. That's what I bought this palette for, was that color right there. They're very pretty, but you do have to do a little work to get them on, and to be honest with you, I forget about them. They just sit in a collection. They sit in one spot. I can show you what I store all my eyeshadow palettes in, but this is the Makeup Forever like case that they had 2 Christmases ago. I thought it was really pretty. I used to leave it out on my black eyeliner pencil, and then there's all the colors. I have used this. I've used this several times. It's a really pretty palette. One of my favorite colors was, and I hate that there's not names to the eyeshadows. That drives me crazy because I will remember the name. I'm not going to remember D826. I'm just not going to. I really like that color, D826, and I liked S516, and I really liked the D236, this teal. Those colors. Yeah, so I did like this. but the packaging is so bulky. It's annoying. Another palette from Makeup Forever is the Palette 15 Artist Shadow Palette. So I didn't use the palette for a while because it was put in the back of a drawer and I forgot about it. Now it's turned into a thing where I don't want to use the palette. Like, it's never been touched. It's pristine. It is gorgeous, and I don't want to touch it now. And I know that's ridiculous, but at some point I will try it because I love this purple. It's like a lilac color, and I love that purple there. It's a different color that I don't have. So, but for right now, I'm not going to swatch it because, I mean, now it's just a thing. It's not been used. It's perfect. Anyway, moving along. So a little bit of crazy, I know. Gotta get a drink. Okay. Next I'm going to go into Anastasia. I love all of the Anastasia palettes. I buy them all the time. Every palette that comes out, I purchase of hers. She's releasing a new palette. I will buy it. Even though I have most of those colors in some of these eyeshadow palettes, I love her palettes. I don't care what anybody says about her palettes. I buy them all, and I think they're wonderful. It all started with the Tama Anna palette. This is my first Anastasia Beverly Hills palette. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. The chocolate color that's in here, I love it. The sangria color, I've used it a ton. These are beautiful eyeshadows. This is not available anymore, so I'm not going to spend much time on it, but I absolutely love it. Next palette that I got was the, I think this is the right order, was the Artist palette. Look at this packaging. I mean, it's gorgeous. What else are you going to say about it? It's very bold, bright coloring. There's all these colors. I've used a lot of these eyeshadows. That yellow is to die for. I have never used it though. Unicorn's pretty, that purpley color. I know I've used Anaconda, which is this green right down here. And Dusty Rose. I mean, everyone knows about Dusty Rose. It's a gorgeous color. I love it. And I love her palettes, and it's not going anywhere. The Anastasia, what is this? The Self-Made palette. I think this was the next palette. These next two I think came out very similar time. Self-Made palette. My daughter bought me this. It's beautiful. It has some teal in it. It's got some lighter colors in it. I love Pink Champagne, and Pink Champagne is in another palette that she came out with. I love that eyeshadow. I've used that a ton. Hot Chocolate's in this palette too. I love it. Absolutely gorgeous. Sherbet, that orangey color. Love it. I gotta pull this palette back out. I'm gonna say that with all of my palettes. The next palette is the Anastasia Shadow Couture palette. I think this was the next palette in the row. Here's Pink Champagne again. See, I told you I knew Pink Champagne was in something else, and you can see I've used it a bunch. Soft Peach is in this. Morocco's in this. I really liked this palette. I used this a lot. Master palette by Mario, you know, Kim Kardashian's makeup artist. I had to have it. I really use this a lot, and I haven't touched it in a long time. I loved it. The Modern Renaissance. This palette has been used and abused, and I've actually bought both of my daughters this palette. Look at this color. I have got to go and buy Tempera. Where's it at? Right down here. I have hit pan, and you will see that there are not very many eyeshadow palettes that I will hit pan on. I've hit pan on Tempera. I love it. I've almost hit pan on Vermeer. This color right here. This is gorgeous. I lived using this palette for quite some time. That's the only palette that I was using over and over and over and over again. Love Letter, Venetian Red, Red Ochre. Subculture, I know it got a bad rap. Everyone didn't like this palette. Most people. I love this palette. I don't feel like it's that much different than any of her other palettes. You just have to be careful. I mean, if you swatch any palette and you get a lot of kick up or you get a lot of pigment out onto the brush, then you know that you've got to go in lightly with it. I mean, you just adapt. There's some palettes you have to use your fingers with. There's some palettes you have to use a very dense brush, or you've got to wet a brush. You know, going into this palette, you're going to get a ton of payoff. And then I have the Prism palette. So you can see I just buy every single palette that she comes out with. I love this palette. I love Dimension. I haven't used this palette that much, but I think it's so pretty. I did a unboxing of these. I think they're gorgeous. They have some massive amounts of pigment in them. This is the Nubian, I think. Wait, the Saharan. This is the Saharan palette. This is the Nubian 2, and then this is the Masquerade. They are gorgeous. They go on the eye gorgeously. They do stain my eye, so when I wear them, I know that after the fact, that's the Masquerade, my eyes are going to be stained. This is the Nubian 2. I have to do a tutorial with these palettes because they're gorgeous. I mean, they're absolutely gorgeous. This is absolutely gorgeous. I think that I used this, the Saharan palette, when the first time I used it, and I loved it. So these are going nowhere. I just got these, so they're not going anywhere. So this is the Buxom eyeshadow palette. This is the Look All You Want eyeshadow palette. It was a holiday collection for 1 year. I liked this blue. It's a white that shifts to, it's a white eyeshadow that shifts to blue. I really wanted that eyeshadow. It looks really cool on the eyes. The rest of the colors are very pretty. The Buxom eyeshadows are kind of cool because you can swap out the colors. You just slide out the side and each one of these eyeshadows pops out, so you can interchange the eyeshadows if you want, and then they click back into place, and it comes with a brush. I got this on sale after the holidays 1 year because I wanted that white. I really wanted that white. This is a really pretty color too, but I really don't use it. I have used the white a couple of times. And then I made my own Buxom eyeshadow palette. So you go in and you buy so many eyeshadows and you get this case for free. This is the collection that I made myself. They're all duochrome. So anything that was duochrome, except for this brown. I really thought the brown was pretty, so that I could put a whole palette together. Let's do Lorac because I have a bunch of Lorac right here. This is the Tale as Old as Time palette. I bought it. I got suckered in. I think I got this from Kohl's where they have them all the time now. No, actually I think I got this one at Ulta. The inside's so pretty. It's just a pretty palette. I have used it a couple of times. It's a typical Lorac palette where there are really soft shadows. I think I've used it once or twice, but it's just a pretty collector's item. It just sits on a shelf. That's the Tale as Old as Time palette. Next palette is the Pirates of the Caribbean palette. I did this in a YouTube made me buy it kind of thing. I got suckered into people saying how great this palette was. It came with an eyeliner. It has an area where you can put the blush palette inside. They're really pretty eyeshadows. I have used this several times, but again, it's something that's so bulky and big. It sits in a drawer just because it takes up so much room. So it sits in a back drawer, and I really never use it. Got suckered in. I will not be buying these kind of palettes again. I just don't use them, and they just clutter up my collection. So next eyeshadow palette is the Lorac Pro Matte. This little mini. It's nice for travel. I had to have this palette just because I love the colors that are in it. This is a good staple that you could take with you. You could grab this, grab 2 little glitter eyeshadows, or grab the NARS duochrome eyeshadow palette, that wet and dry palette, or any of the other palettes that you're seeing. The Skinny Dip palette would go beautifully with this because you've got all of your transition colors, your highlighting colors, something dark to deepen up the outer corner if you wanted to, and then you can add glitter to the eye if you want. So this is a really nice, easy palette to throw in with any other palettes. It really does give you a good staple base background to add in color on top. This is Lorac Pro. This is one of my, look at how terrible this packaging is horrible because it collects every kind of fingerprint and dust and yuck. This is the Lorac Pro 1. I had to have it because I was new into makeup and everybody talked about it. I do like these colors. I have not used this. This is probably going to be my next Throwback Thursday palette just because I have not used this in several years. This eyeshadow color matches my shirt right now. These colors are so pretty. They're so soft. I mean, everyone knows that palette. There's 2 colors right there, the mauve and the brown. This is the Lorac Pro 2. I do not have the Lorac Pro 3. I was going to buy it, but I don't use these to begin with, and I was just going to buy it so I'd have the entire collection. That's silly. So this is a very pretty palette. When I did first buy it, I loved it. I used it all the time. But when you start accumulating other palettes, you always want to use the new thing that you have. So again, maybe this will be a Throwback Thursday palette. This is so pretty. This is the Lorac Unzipped palette. Beautiful eyeshadow palette. But the problem that I have with this palette is a lot of the colors muddy together. So when you're trying different looks, a lot of the looks look the same. So although it's beautiful, I never reach for it. Just sits in the back. Now this is the Lorac Mega Pro 3. Look at how bad this poor bad boy looks. And the reason that it looks like this is because my daughter shanghaied it. Her softball number is 3, so she thought she needed this. She loves rose gold anything. So it's been sitting in her collection for a while, and when I was looking for it, she said, oh yeah, I've been using it forever. It is filthy. It's just embarrassing to even have on here because it's so dirty. It's the same kind of white packaging that all of the palettes, it's the same type of packaging that all of the Lorac palettes have, so it just gets filthy. These are the colors. It's gorgeous. I have never used this palette because I purchased it. It sat in my collection and then my daughter took it from me. So I've never used it. So at this point, she can have it because it's just a mess and I will never touch it that messy. I know they came out with a new one. I have no interest in buying it simply because I never used this one. Why would I buy another one? This is the Marc Jacobs eyeshadow quad. This is in 740 Scandalust. I love this. I use this palette all the time. It's beautiful. The payoff, this red, I love it. It's one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes. Look at this. Oh my gosh. I love it. And I love the, there's like a nudie, this color right here. Oh, I love it. It's gorgeous. This is 218, the Parisian. I loved this case. It's like blue, black to blue. Sorry if you can hear the bulldog. His feet on the floor. This eyeshadow palette I really, really wanted. It came out around a holiday one year and I've never used it. It's Zebra Stripe. This is the palette. It is called the 770, the wild one. Nah, that's why you did zebras. Oh God, I always can't figure out how to open this guy. There we go. Okay, this is this eyeshadow palette. I bought this entire palette simply because I wanted this color, this orange. It's like an orange that shifts pink. It looks so cool on the eyes. I love that eyeshadow and that's the only reason I bought this entire palette. Good way to spend $100, right? Yay, I love it. Huda's up next. I love Huda Beauty. I will buy every eyeshadow palette she ever comes out with. This is the Huda Beauty Textured Rose Gold palette. I love it. I have a backup of this palette upstairs that I did not bring down. This rose gold color I have hit pan on. I have almost hit pan on this color here. I use this all the time and for a very long time I had to talk myself into using any other eyeshadow palette. If you get the opportunity to buy this palette, pick it up. You'll love it. She came out with the Desert Dusk. I have that as well. Either one, if you can get either one of the palettes, you're gonna love them. And I love this palette. The two holiday, so here's the Desert Dusk palette. I bought this, I love it, it's gorgeous. It's got more purpley tones. I use this palette all the time. I use this purple and this purple all the time. I love it. She's coming out with another palette. I don't even know what it's like. I've seen two colors swatched out of the palette. I will be purchasing it, no doubt about it. Love that. And then I have the little holiday collection that she came out with. This is the Smoky Obsessions and this is the Mauve Obsessions. I absolutely love these. They are amazing for traveling on the go. They're beautiful. They're just as good as her other palettes. However, they're not made in the same place as the bigger palettes, and this is the Mauve Obsessions. They're gorgeous. They're beautiful. You can travel with them. My daughter steals this all the time. She loves them. They're gorgeous eyeshadows. I highly recommend Huda palettes. Okay, moving right along, let's get into some Tarte. This is the Tarte palette that I got from, it was Be Your Own Tartist. I think this was on like some Hot Look special or something. I bought it. It's very pretty. I never wear it. This is a blush and 6 eyeshadows. This has got to be rehomed. This would be a good palette for my mom. Maybe I'll give her this. But it's so pretty. I love the packaging on the outside. So this is the Tarte Tease. I love this eyeshadow palette. This is another cute little guy that you can throw in your bag and travel with. You can get several different looks with this eyeshadow palette. It's very, very pretty. I love it. It's really pretty. Again, another one my daughter steals. This is the Tarte Pro palette. Had to get this because everyone was raving about it and saying it was so great. I never used it. I've used it very few times, but it's so pretty. I don't know why I don't use it. There's all those colors. I know this is blinding. These are all the shimmery colors. These are all mattes. It's very pretty. I just forget about it. Ooh, it smells so good. It smells like vanilla. I love it. I have to use it some more. I do use these orange ones down here, but I've got to try using this more. I will. Then I've got the Graveyard Girl Swamp Queen palette. Outside of the palette, had to have it. Bunny's so cute. She did a really good job with this palette. I really liked it. I know that some people, I don't know, had different opinions about this, but I really like this palette. I think it's very pretty. These are all contour or a bronzer, a blush, a highlight, and eyeshadows, and they're very pretty, and I have not used this in years. When it came out, I used it for a while, and then I just pushed it to the side. Haven't used it for years. I have the Tartelette palette. This is the first palette that came out, very cool toned. I lived with this palette, used it all the time. They're beautiful eyeshadows. I will buy every single one of these Tartelette palettes that come out. So this is the original Tartelette palette. I have the Tartelette in Bloom palette, beautiful packaging. These eyeshadows are gorgeous. This is not an all matte palette. The first one was, the second one had shimmers in it. Gorgeous. I use this a ton. I still use this. You can get gorgeous looks out of this palette. This is a great starting palette too. If you were just starting out in eyeshadow and you don't want to go crazy with color, this is a great one to use. Love it. And the Tartelette Toasted. I mean, you got to have the trifecta if you're going to have one. This Gorgeous. This is another warm tone palette. I got 3 warm tone palettes all at the same time. I love this eyeshadow palette. It smells like vanilla. It smells so good. I love this palette. Again, if you want something with a kick up from the In Bloom palette, grab this palette. If you want something that's opposite of the Tartelette, get this palette because then you'll have warm and cool tones. I love this palette. Gorgeous. Not going anywhere. We are moving as fast as I possibly can. Next couple of palettes. These are all my Visart palettes. I have the Dark Matter palette. That's the first one that I got. These are gorgeous. They stay true to color. You can blend them like a dream. They're absolutely gorgeous. These are makeup artistry eyeshadows that are true to pigment. Their pigment is through and through gorgeous. You can blend these out like a dream. You can recreate looks with these because the pigment is so true in them. I love them. This is the first one that I got, and this is the Dark Matter. Oh no, part of the shadow just cracked. This is the Warm Mattes. This is my newest one out of the entire collection. Oh, let me just open that for you. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous eyeshadows. And then this is the Neutral Matte palette. Gorgeous. And I want to get their big palette that they came out with. I'm considering ordering that from Beautylish. But gorgeous eyeshadows, absolutely gorgeous. 2 smaller palettes that I got from there. This is the Petite Pro palette. I was really excited about getting this. There's the new Golden Hour, and then there's another one that just came out right now, the Thor, it starts with a T. I do want that new palette. The Golden Hour is beautiful as well, but I really wanted this, and I really don't use this that much. This green, I just really don't use this palette. I have to get into trying to use it. I did use this color on the end quite a few times, and I love how petite and little this is. And then this is the Theory palette in Cashmere, I think. Oh, Minx. I love this eyeshadow palette. I've used it a ton. It's absolutely beautiful. You can pick this up at Sephora. It's a nice travel palette. These are absolutely beautiful. I mean, you could just get this palette and use it all the time if you didn't want a huge eyeshadow collection. Okay, we're moving right along. We're getting into, I have 2 Carly Bible palettes. I bought these just because of YouTube. There's the first Carly Bible palette. This is a very affordable brand. You can pick them up at Ulta and you can use coupons on them. Very affordable. And the pigment, the eyeshadows are beautiful in this palette. They really are pretty. And then this is her newer one, the Deluxe Edition, the Carly Bible Deluxe Edition palette. I've never used it, but it's beautiful. I've swatched them and they are gorgeous. I just forget about them. I have so many other eyeshadow palettes that I use them instead. Highlighters, eyeshadows, they're gorgeous. I'm going to end right here. We'll do Too Faced, Urban Decay. The rest of my Kat Von D, we'll do that in part 2. Just because this has gotten so long, I don't know how I'd possibly condense it enough. So I hope that you enjoyed this. Like and subscribe down below before I run out of steam here. Thanks, guys. Bye. Watch number 2. Bye.